Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I think this is the first video on this channel that I'm filming where I chopped my hair off. I did it on my vlog, but then a few days later, I felt like it was still too long, so I chopped it again, and I still feel like it's too long. I don't like that it is actually touching my shoulders. I want it to be shorter, but at this length, I can't put it up all the way, so I am trying to refrain. But anyway, hi, Happy New Year, Happy January, Happy 2024. It's actually New Year's Day as I'm filming this. We're off to a good start. I cleaned my house all last night. I purged a trunk full of things, threw away so many things, donated so many things, watered all my plants, cut off all the dead leaves, and I feel like I'm just in a good place to start over fresh for the year. So anyways, today, as the thumbnail says, or the title says of this video, we're gonna be going through my entire philodendron collection. It's going to be similar to the format that I followed with my anthurium and my ripsalis. So part one is going to be just the collection. I'm going to show you every one that is remaining in the house, and then part two is going to be a philodendron Q&A and going over my philodendron wish list. And in honor of today's video, I am wearing the Tropics Narcotics philodendron shirt. This is not sponsored. They did give this to me, but they did not ask me to wear it in this video or anything. I'll link them in the description. I don't have any affiliate code or anything, but it is so worth it. I love this shirt so much. It has like a really nice feel to the shirt. It fits the way I want, like very like loose. This is a size large. Wait. This is a size large. So if you want it to fit like this, just like really baggy, it probably goes like to the end of my butt, and I'm 4'11". So anywho, with all that said, I'm just gonna start in here. I'm gonna start bringing out each philodendron one by one. Not sure if I'm going to resume this in the plant room. It is kind of early, so hopefully we still have daylight by the end of this video, but we might do a room change. But we're just gonna start on the shelf. Oh, and if you have not seen my new shelf setup, here she is. I will link the video in the description where I set it up. I love it so much. It's just been like such a source of happiness for me right now. And I did install some black Barina bars. I didn't do it in that video because I said I wasn't gonna do it, but I ended up doing it anyway. My mom surprised me and got me the new black bars, only available in the States. And I put it up and I'm so happy with it. So I will also link that in the description if you are interested. Okay, let's start. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to fit this in the frame, but this is the philodendron Dean McDowell. If you don't know who the McDowell is, this is a cross of the philodendron gloriosum crossed with a postazanum. Or wait, is it the reverse? I haven't really thought about that in a while. I can't remember if it's a gloriosum pasta or a pasta gloriosum. Yes, it is a philodendron gloriosum crossed with a postazanum. And because, and this is why I got confused, there's been confusion in the plant world regarding who is the mother, because if you look at this leaf, it's a very pasta dominant plant. Like if I saw this, I would really assume that the pasta was the mom, because you don't really get a ton of the gloriosum features besides the slight change or the slight difference in texture and in the venation. But anyway, with all that said, this is the Dean McDowell. This has to be one of my favorite philodendron of all time. I can still remember the feeling that I got when I first discovered it. When it first came home with me, I was just absolutely smitten. I was in love. It really, really sparked my love for the really heart-shaped, puffy philodendron leaves. I think I even had a Dean McDowell before I had a gloriosum. I can't quite remember, but she is just a stunner. Now, I've had people ask me what the difference is between the gloriosum. Why do I keep saying gloriosum? The difference between a McDowell and a postazanum. I'm not going to get into all of those details right now, but I will link a helpful post from Siddharth in the description. I don't know if you'll be able to see the link if you're not a part of the Facebook group, so you're gonna have to join. But if you are a philodendron lover, I do think you should join anyway because it has just a plethora of really good philodendron information. It's not as helpful as it used to be, honestly, in my opinion. I feel like a lot of the enthusiast page, Monstera enthusiast, philodendron enthusiast, anthurium enthusiast, they were run or still run by very, very prominent people in the community, very knowledgeable people in the community, but I feel like it's kind of dropped off a little bit and it's turned more into just like a show and tell place. I think people are even like selling plants on there. I don't know. It's just not really what it used to be. But if you utilize the search function, you can get so much good information through posts, through comments. You can discover new philodendron that you've never heard of before. So I highly recommend joining that group. But anyway, yeah, this guy, so a little bit about my specimen specifically. There are actually two plants in here. One of them is my original plant that I got back in I think it was 2019. I picked it up locally at a shop here called Figaro's. And then another one is from Alice. I can't remember if she gave me like an entire plant or what the situation was, but somehow I ended up with two of them. And at one point when the leaves were like humongous and I was getting a little bit overwhelmed, I thought about selling one, but in the process of doing that, I felt this like tug at my heart that no amount of money could cure. So I was like, you know what, why don't I do two plants in one pot? Because I find that not with just big, like, I guess this is a crawler? I think it's a crawler. I'm pretty sure this is a crawling plant. Not just with crawling plants, but I would say philodendron in general, especially if you're not giving it a direct source of light that is just coming from the front. Like if it's getting light from like the sides only or just the top, it can get really leggy, and I'll be able to show you an example of that later. You can, yeah, combine two plants in one pot to just kind of fill in the empty spaces, and then you can get something nice and full like this, which is super, super magical. But yeah, I love this plant a lot. It's right now living in no drainage. It has a leca reservoir down at the bottom, and then it's in a very chunky, perlite heavy pond, and it has loved it in here. The leaves have not been sizing up a ton. I mean, it's a decent size. Like this is the last leaf on one of them, but at the same time, I'm kind of liking the leaf size at this point because they can live together. It can live with the rest of my plants without it being too much. So I'm really not complaining. I really just want to see new growth on this plant. I just want this plant in my collection in general. And I don't really have any like goal for this plant. I'm not really trying to do anything more than what I'm already doing with it. But yeah, I wanted to open it with this because she's just a fan favorite over here, and she's been very, very good to me. Besides the fact that she's a spider mite magnet, we're not going to talk about that. She's spider mite free right now after a 1.5 years of treatment, and I think she's looking pretty dang good. The next guy is a plant that kind of goes overlooked in this house, to be honest with you. I said I just watered plants and this one's bone dry. She's a liar. Yeah, so this one goes overlooked. This is the philodendron hederaceum var oxycardium variegated, basically a variegated heartleaf philodendron. This one has gone through several haircuts, several transformations. I tried getting this thing to climb at one point, but I just kind of gave up that dream. I had to really reconsider who I wanted on a pole because the space that I have for pole plants are limited, and I was like, who do I really, really, really want to see size up? So I had to let go of that dream, and now she's just a trailing plant, and she's actually really cute. She's definitely due for a chop. Lots of new growth down here, and it's really, I think it's primarily one stem, but I do think I might have like 2 more smaller growth points up at the top, and you can see how little they are. I used to have a lot of these kinds of guys in my collection. I had the Brazil, I had the Cream Splash, I had the Marble Queen, I had Global Green, I had Glacier, I had so many. And it was just kind of, I definitely went through a trailing plant phase, but that quickly died off once it started getting a little bit too much. So now I'm just trying to keep the ones that are very, very near and dear to my heart. And this is definitely one of them. I just find this to be such a cool plant. And the cool thing is this used to be really, really expensive. I can't remember how much, because I got this from my friend Jing. I can't remember how much she paid for a cutting of it, or if I think she might have, you know, done it in a trade or something, but they used to be really expensive, and now you can find them for super cheap. Like, people in our local Facebook groups are purging them for like $5 a cutting or something like that. So yeah, they're definitely more accessible now. I don't know if like the demand for them are really high, but I think they're pretty cool. So in my experience, when you grow them in brighter light, like when I was growing this in a cabinet with a greenhouse, a lot of the leaves, they come out really bright and beautiful like this, sometimes even brighter, like it's like white. And they kind of stay this way longer under brighter light, but if it's kind of just getting diffused light, like where it is right now, it's just kind of hanging in this corner. Probably the maximum amount of foot candles it's getting during the winter, maybe 50, 50 at best, if that, maybe 40. And yeah, the leaves end up kind of like turning like green on green, but I like it because it's very, very subtle. It's a little bit more to look at than just the green one, although I did really love the green oxycardium. I had like 3 in my collection at one point. I had one like in every room on every shelf because I just felt like it's such a great filler plant because of the way they just cascade and all kind of face the same direction, unlike a pothos where they kind of like flip upward, you know? So I just like the growth pattern of the trailing philodendron more, but they got thrips. At some point, all 3 of them had thrips and I just couldn't deal. I just chucked them all, and I've been a little bit too afraid to bring another one home because it seems like all of the ones that were being sold locally had some kind of pest, and it's so hard to treat big, bushy, trailing plants when there's like a full-blown outbreak. And at this point in my life, and with my collection looking the way it does right now, I'm just not really willing to make that, or I'm not willing to take that risk. So this is good for me, I guess, for now. She kind of scratches that itch. So I'm probably gonna be chopping it soon, and I'll propagate and things like that because I do want this to be somewhat bushier. I mean, I'd love for it to be bushier. I'm not really loving how it's kind of just like this single trailing thing. It really doesn't do anything for me at all. But yeah, if you're looking for a cool, fun trailing plant that's a little bit different than just like your normal Marble Queen pothos or Global Green, not Global Green, I mean not Jade Satin. Oh my gosh. What's the green pothos? Is that just called like a jade or something? My brain, it's not what it used to be. It's like mush right now. But anyway, yeah, I highly recommend this one. This one is super, super fun. All right, so I have not a 2-for-1, but kind of. 2 plants, 2 separate plants, but the same kind of plant. So the next one is the philodendron bilietiae. I've been wanting to show you guys this for a while because, so this is like my original one, FYI. I had one and then I acquired a second one. Actually, no, this is my second one. This is one that I acquired, I think it was like 2021 or something like that. But this is her. She has been growing so nicely, really bushy, compact, not facing down. Billies can be kind of challenging to grow to keep like their growth pattern looking nice. And this one has been really good to me. And I moved it into my bedroom at one point, which gets like no light at all because of the blackout curtains. And I'm not really good about opening the curtains every day for it to get light. So this is the one leaf that grew in my bedroom, and look at the size of this petiole in comparison to the rest. So this is what your billy will do if it is searching for light. It's gonna stretch those petioles and they will be a mile long. Look at that guy. That's probably the size of my leg, like honestly. So I moved it out of there because the poor thing was just like reaching so hard to be so close to the window. And it kind of messed up this cute growth pattern that I had going on. He's just like not even part of it. He kind of looks like Santa Claus, and then these are like his reindeer. Wait, no, that's reverse. Santa Claus doesn't pull the reindeer. No, I don't know what I'm thinking of, you guys. I knew I shouldn't have filmed today. I'm a mess. Anyways, this is the new leaf on it. It's definitely getting bigger. When I first acquired this plant, all of the leaves were about this size. Some were a bit smaller. And yeah, it's been really easy. Honestly, this is one of the plants that I recommend to people who don't want to grow in greenhouses, don't really want to worry too much about pests and stuff. And if they do get pests, I find these leaves to be quite easy to treat. And yeah, it's just a fun plant. It's so different than a lot of the philodendron that you're gonna see. I definitely think it makes a statement piece, which is why I have always loved having a billy in my house. Under brighter conditions, you can get these petioles to be even more orange. Right now, it's really not getting any more than what's coming through these windows. And of course, I live in Canada, not a lot of bright light here year round. So the stems are more of like a brownish, rusty orange color rather than that nice bright orange that you can get. So yeah, this is the first one growing in pond, no drainage, living La Vida Loca, no issues whatsoever. I'm gonna show you the second one. This is my original Billietier that I acquired from Lauren back in 2020. Oh, 2020, 2021, I can't remember. This is the newest leaf on it. Pretty decent size. It's definitely sizing up now. So if you guys might remember, I had a billy that had a massive, gigantic import leaf on it. It was probably the size of my entire torso plus my head, and that had been on the plant since I got it. It was like almost 4 years that the import leaf had stayed with me, and it was bittersweet when it started to yellow because I don't know, I say bittersweet because that one leaf took up so much space. I had a lot of difficulty placing it somewhere, and then sweet because now that the leaf is gone, it's much easier to find a spot for this. But you can see how weird this growth pattern is. So billies tend to do this if not given great lighting conditions. And what I mean by that is if you don't have a light source that's essentially lighting it from the front up to the top, so like think of it like this, it's gonna stretch, the petioles are gonna get really long, and they're gonna go 360 trying to search for light. So that is what this thing eventually ended up doing. It had a growth pattern similar to my other one. Everything, all the petioles or all the leaves facing one way. It was very compact, very bushy, shorter petioles. But then I moved this to my shelf in the kitchen, and the only light that it was getting was from the back. So I don't know if it's gonna be hard to imagine this. Are my mandarins bad already? What on earth? Yeah, so think of the plant is like this, both windows to the right and left side of it, but to the back. So basically it started pushing either way, which is why there's not many leaves here in the front anymore. This side searched for the window on that side, this side searched for windows on that side, or lights on that side, and I ended up with a plant that looks like this. So I have moved this to a different spot now in hopes that the leaves kind of find its way back to the center. But yeah, either way, it is growing pretty well. The leaves on these ones are definitely a lot larger than the ones on my other one. Like, for example, this one is maybe like double the size of my hand. This one is actually still hardening, like it's still pretty soft. And yeah, it's a really great size. So I think at some point when all of the leaves are getting, maybe not around this size, but larger than this, I think it's gonna be one of those plants that I start chopping the bottom leaves off because this one doesn't really like to drop leaves. It's very similar to the torum. It's very similar to the hetero, the patty, where there's not a lot of shedding. I feel like my Florida Beauty is the same way too. Like there's just plants I have in my collection where it's like when a new leaf comes, like the older leaves don't necessarily die off. It's almost like every 6 or 7 leaves, every new 6 or 7 leaves, then the bottom one dies off. And this is one of them. So it's pretty common to see really big bushy billies. And I haven't really done the pruning method a lot for this one just because I haven't felt the need to. But now that I'm seeing a jump in leaf size, we might be there. But yeah, very, very cute plant. Also growing in no drainage. This one is actually in soil, and then it's got leca down at the bottom. The one drawback I will say with this plant specifically is, again, like I mentioned, if you're not giving it kind of like that perfect lighting situation, you're gonna see really, really wonky growth patterns, crazy long petioles like this. And then the second one is that this plant is a super, super EFN heavy plant. There is EFN all over my hands. It primarily, in my experience, it kind of attacks not attacks, but it's more dominant on the petioles than it is on the leaves. So I think I can show you over here. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see on this petiole here, like the little saplets. But other than that, it's a great plant and I find it to be a pretty easy one too. I feel like I've made a conscious effort on this channel to not show you the totem in every video, but here is the baddie herself in all her glory. She is getting really, really big. This is the newest leaf on it. It's kind of hard to see on camera or to tell on camera how big these leaves have gotten, but they're getting pretty large now. What's there to say about the good old totem besides the fact that I think everyone needs one of them? I want to show you the funny growth pattern. Somebody actually asked me like, oh, how'd you get your totem on a pole? Technically, I really didn't. There is a pole, but she's not using it. I'll try and show you without hitting the camera. Look at her. She, like, as soon as I put the pole in there, she just wanted nothing to do with it. She's growing away from it. So, like, she's like crawling. She's basically crawling, and I'm really not understanding it. So really this pole is just for emotional support and I guess companionship. But she just is kind of doing her own thing. She's sizing up really without being attached to the pole, and I'm not complaining. But she is a thing of beauty. Look at her. She's like her own little palm tree now. Look at her from the back. It's just the coolest thing. I really wish that there was a easy way to photograph this thing and just kind of show her in all her beauty, like to show you what I see in person, but it's so hard. It's so hard to capture it, especially at this size. And I actually thought about chopping it, but at the same time, I'm like, why chop it if it's growing so well? But in terms of, I guess, like the ease of care for this one, I would say not hard really at all. There was a point in time where this plant would really only grow quickly and grow nice leaves if it was given warmth, and I still would, like, if you can grow this thing in warmer conditions, I would recommend that. But in cooler temps, it's been fine too. It did take a while for it to acclimatize fully out of a greenhouse because I was having issues with unfurling, and you'll see a lot of the newer leaves kind of are missing the tip because it wouldn't unfurl all the way and it would just rip and break off. But other than that, now that she's just kind of out here living her life, she's been really great, and I just can't imagine having my collection without this plant. It's just such a staple. I do hope that the nodes stay as tight as they are, because I've seen a lot of really leggy tortums, and people have asked me how I keep it nice and compact. And honestly, I thought before that it was because I was growing it in a greenhouse. It was always in really close proximity to light. I don't find that these leaves bleach or burn very easily. But it's living up here now, and it's grown maybe like 3 leaves up there, and the nodes are still super, super compact. So I think I've just got a really good plant. I think it just has great genetics, and hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. But yeah, she has been a freaking dream, an absolute dream to grow. So I still recommend this as one of like the most, I don't know, magical philodendron out there. Like if anybody asks me like what philodendron I'm going to recommend, it's gonna be the torum, because everybody just needs a torum. So anywho, that's enough of that. Did I show you guys the potting situation? No drainage, no leca reservoir down at the bottom, which is kind of surprising. I usually like to do a leca reservoir on pots this deep, but she's just hanging out, not a care in the world. Roots are super healthy and happy, can probably live in here for a lot longer. I don't really see the need to repot right away. But yeah, here she is. And not sure the next time you'll see her, but she's doing good. Next one up is my philodendron soderini. Soderini, everyone. Look at her go. So, ow. If you have not been here very long, you will know that I grew this from a teeny tiny little thing. We have really been through a lot together. She has taught me a lot of lessons in life. She's taught me the value of using CalMag, and yeah, she's been doing really well. So it's been kind of a learning process. I've had to adjust to some learning curves with this one. In terms of trying to get conditions right, because it does bleach very easily. It does have the tendency to get stuck in the cataphyll, things like that. But otherwise, she's kind of just trucking along. So here are my very non-educated, scientifically proven observations and opinions about the soderini. Some people have said that this is not a soderini because it does not have the ability to essentially go large form, which is not true. And I say it's not true only because William Rodolante, so Bill, he was the one working in the labs trying to shrink the internodes of the soderoi. Inadvertently, that whole process created a plant that had just smaller leaves and really kind of weird variegation on the leaves, which he has referred to as damaged DNA. It kind of resembles mosaic. It kind of resembles something very viral. I have seen some of these non-mosaic but highly DNA destroyed soderini going around, and they do look very sick. And if you allow that mutation, not mutation, but if you let the damaged DNA kind of run rampant through the plant, meaning you don't chop it away, it can make the plant look kind of gross, like really, really disgusting. Like I would never want one of those highly variegated soderini in my collection. Anyway, I do say that it's false that it can size up, because at some point Bill had posted on his Instagram a photo of his, it was like a few soderini climbing this wall or climbing something, and he basically said that like it didn't have the ability to go into cataphyll and it just stayed small. But then a few years later, I think it was maybe 2 years later, he showed an update of his soderini, and it was larger than this. It looked just like a full-blown soderoi, but he did say that the leaves stay smaller. I think that's what he said. And that has been kind of my experience with this plant. I don't know if you can tell, but a lot of these leaves are just truly, they're the same size. No matter if it's climbing a pole, no matter if I'm fertilizing it, giving it optimal conditions, I feel like it just takes a lot longer for the soderini to size up to soderoi form. At first I was a little frustrated because I was like, oh, I was kind of enjoying seeing it size up, and I really love big soderini leaves. I think they're one of like the most beautiful philodendron out there, which is why I love the majestic so much, because it takes so much of the soderini traits. But you know, I just kept getting leaves that were around this size. But now that I'm like kind of in a place where I need all my plants to kind of fit together nicely, and I don't really want to be overwhelmed with crazy growth or leaves that I can't manage, it's been kind of nice to just have a plant that looks like this. I mean, it looks really healthy. This plant did have some of that DNA. I'm struggling today. This plant specifically did have a good amount of that damaged DNA in the beginning. I didn't chop it back. It just kind of eventually went away as it matured, and I haven't really noticed a ton of that variegation on any of these like new leaves. I feel like I haven't seen the variegation in a long time. I did have another cutting of, maybe not this plant specifically, but I had another soderini that was really, really highly variegated, and somebody wanted it for an experiment. So I sold it to that person, but I ended up keeping this one because it's the one that I had invested the most time and effort into. I talked more about my soderini journey in my easy philodendrons video. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have added it to that video because it did take a while for it to become a more low maintenance plant. But anyway, if you want to hear that whole story, I will link it in the description as well. But yeah, this is what she looks like now. It's not really anything crazy. I haven't really had a tremendous leaf size jump in a while. It's looked like this pretty much all year. So not much to report. It is fully climbing this pole from Lauren. It's in a mix of tree fern fiber and tree fern fiber and chopped up moss. It's in a pot with no drainage. Just kind of, oh my god, there's perlite everywhere. Kind of your regular aeroid mix, heavy on the perlite, as you can tell. No reservoir layer down at the bottom. Do I have any goals for this plant this year? Yes. I think this is one of the philodendron in my collection that I would love to see get bigger. There are some, like I mentioned, that I don't really care if the leaves don't get bigger. The next one I'm about to show you is my El Guapo. You can kind of see it in the corner. I wouldn't really mind if my torum leaves didn't get a lot bigger because I'm happy with the way it is. My McDowell, the Billy, those kinds of plants, I'm okay with them just kind of being nice, big, bushy, healthy plants. But I do I want to see some big soderini leaves because I just love them when they're humongo. So hopefully we get there. This next one is incredibly heavy. I'm gonna need some reinforcements. It's so heavy. I just repotted it into the world's largest crawling pot, and I did it in, I think I did it in my last week of plant things, which I will also link in the description. But she has just been newly repotted, and it's not looking wonderful in terms of the leaves. I think it's actually thirsty. It's weird because the root system wasn't massive, but I'm having to water this thing so often. And I'm almost wondering if it's because the water is being absorbed into all of the soil instead of just the roots. I don't know, because the pot is so large. But anyway, you can see the leaves are like really like droopy and facing down, but I haven't noticed any yellowing on the leaves since the repot. Really the only sign of unhappiness that I'm seeing is just the leaves not facing upward, but it was kind of a brutal repot. But I hope you can kind of see her a little bit. Let me show you the new leaves here. By the way, I don't know if I said who this was. This is the philodendron El Guapo, formerly called the philodendron SP Columbia, philodendron SP Silver. I don't really know what we're calling it these days in terms of this form. I don't know if this specific form is the El Guapo. I haven't really seen a lot of information about this online. I don't really see a lot of people talking about this specific form. Always the other one that I'm seeing. This plant was actually kind of climbing when it was in the pot that it was in, so which is why I moved it to a crawling plant, to a crawling pot. I don't know if it's gonna want to crawl but I just kind of want to see if it will, because yeah, it was a little bit hard to manage when it was in the situation that it was in before. The stem is getting pretty thick now, so if it ends up wanting to climb again, I think it can honestly support itself. But this one has been really, really fun. I've had this for, gosh, when did we get this? I think I got this in 2022, or maybe I can't remember, you guys. I need like a spreadsheet of when I got all my plants, because now at this point, now that time is just like moving, I'm just like guessing, and I don't want to lie to you guys. But I've had this plant for at least a full year, if not a year and a half, and it's been lovely. The leaves were probably half this size when I first got it. I got this from Lauren, and it has grown up quite a bit. I'm gonna take a little break because Pudge is gonna go out right now. I'm just gonna continue this conversation while they're kind of doing their thing, because I'm just sitting here and I'm getting bored. And I wanna take my contacts and my makeup off already. Prior to living in its crawling pot, it was living in a no drainage vessel. It was living in pond. Oh yeah, so I did a pond to soil conversion. I always expect a little bit of stress and shock when I'm doing that kind of conversion, whether it's pond to soil, soil to pond, water to pond, water to soil, any kind of transition from two different mediums, or just any kind of repot in general. I have that expectation that it's going to do something. So that way at least I'm prepared. But if it doesn't go into shock, then that's great too. But clearly this one is going through something, because she looks like a wilted, dying bouquet of plant. I do think I just need to water this, but anywho, yeah, I really, really like this plant. It is a spider mite magnet though, I will say, so keep that in mind. I do find it harder to treat because some of these veins are really tight. And I will show you, oh my God, if this thing falls off this chair, I think I might cry. I am so sensitive right now. I don't know which body I'm living in, but she cries a lot. So I don't know if you can tell, but some of these veins are really, really tight, and spider mites get like wedged in there, and it's hard to see. And I almost kind of see some. I see some, but I think they're dead, but they're just like, they get trapped and wedged in these little crevices, and it's very, very hard to get out. So also keep that in mind. You know what? I think this thing is just freaking thirsty. I think she's just thirsty. It's so dry. Sticking my finger in here, she's dry. Oh, I just watered this. Like, when did I water this? Well, it's wet over here. That's what she said. I'm hoping that we're not dealing with a little bit of a root rot, but I'm gonna trust the process. I don't repot right away if I'm noticing that it's not looking great. Sometimes it resolves on its own if the roots rot off. Sometimes simultaneously new roots will grow at the same time, so it kind of balances it out, and so I just leave it. So that's what I'm gonna do with this one. I think not until I see things going really yellow, I'll take it out and try and fix whatever I had done. But anyway, yeah, I would say these really tight, beautiful veins are both a blessing and a curse if you are living in a pest-heavy place like I am, or you're just prone to getting pests like I am. But to me, it's worth it. To me, it's worth having to wash this down a lot, give it lots of showers, give it lots of love and TLC, because the amount of joy this thing brings me is, it's a lot, okay? She brings me a lot of happiness, and I just feel like she's worth the effort. I wish that I had something a little bit perkier and happier to show you for this philodendron video, but she's really going through it. The next one is a plant you've seen recently in my glow ups and glow downs of 2023 video, and that is the philodendron hederaceum var hederaceum, aka the philodendron micans. This is not the original micans. I will not be showing that to you today. I showed it in the other video if you wanted to check that out. This is the second one that I acquired more recently from my friends over at Plants MCA. It was not this large when I got it. I did give it a haircut recently because some of the strands were like really long, and I like to keep it super bushy. But it has grown quite a bit, even despite neglect over the last year. You can kind of see it's getting really bare here where the older leaves are dropping off. So quickly going over the process and how I keep the micans nice and bushy. Frequent haircuts, and when I mean haircuts, I don't mean like taking like 2 or 3 leaves off the bottom. I mean like blunt cut, give it a bowl cut haircut, like take 6 or 7 inches off if you can. You can also stagger the heights in which you're taking cuttings so that different axillary buds in different areas are activating, and it fills it in nicely, and it just keeps growing. Then you chop and then it grows, and you just get a nice big bushy plant. But if you are seeing some barrenness and balding up at the top, obviously I'm not gonna wanna chop all the way up here and lose the whole strand. So what I would do, and I actually need to do this, I'm gonna be repotting this soon because it dries out so fast. What I would then do in the repot is bury it deeper so that this is the new top. Or if you don't want to repot, you can even wrap the entire thing around the pot like this, go the other way, and try and stick all of these stems in the pot, and you can even put more soil above it so that those nodes are touching the soil and it can reroot into the substrate. And so when you just kind of give it a little hair flip like that, you have one that doesn't look as bald or as receding as it once did. So this is definitely the next project. I want to dedicate more time to this one, more energy to this one, because I've kind of just been letting it do its own thing. It's been living in not the greatest conditions, and so now I'm starting to notice that it's looking a little nicer. And just in case my other micans doesn't glow up, I want to have a backup, because this is my favorite trailing plant, period. More than any ripsalis, more than any other plant. This is my girl. She is equivalent to my torum in terms of favorites. If I could only choose one trailing plant to have in my collection, it's gonna be the micans. I have an entire care video dedicated to the micans if you wanna know how I grow them and my recommendations for them and all that, so I'm not gonna get into it now. But yeah, this is what she looks like now. She's just living over on this shelf. Obviously, she's living in no drainage. There's no like pot inside. I'm just kind of letting her bang. And historically, I've just liked growing micans in no drainage because I do find it to be a thirstier trailing plant. This one tends to take in a lot of water and push out a lot of water, but I don't really notice things like edema or any, like the leaves kind of melting. I don't know if you've ever experienced that with some philodendron where, especially in the winter, if you water it deeply, it takes in a lot of water really fast, the cells burst, and then the whole leaf just kind of like dies sometimes. Sometimes. Other times you'll just notice guttation. It'll just push out the excess water from the leaf margins. But in some severe cases, you'll see that like the entire leaf kind of just like explodes. It's kind of crazy. The next time it happens to me, because I know it will, I will try and document it on camera. But yeah, quick feature on this one. I didn't want to go too in depth because you just saw her. Next one up is my original philodendron El Guapo. Purchased it back, or I think I imported this plant. Yeah, I imported this, don't ask me when, 2022. This was very, very big and beautiful at one point. I think I also included this in my glow ups and glow downs video, so I'm not gonna go too in depth. But this is what's left of her. There was a point where I kind of contemplated just throwing this one out because I had loved this one so much. But in the process of selling and compiling everything I needed to put together a sales post or give it to Lauren, I was like, I want to include a picture of the mother plant because I want people to see how glorious this thing was at one point. And then me seeing the photo inadvertently made me change my mind and was like, no, no, I'm not ready yet to give up that dream, because once she is really big and beautiful, she is a majestic, glorious thing. Yeah, I just want to wait. But honestly, after she kind of tanked because of spider mites, I propagated it, I chopped it, and it just really never did anything after that. It's always kind of stayed a one-leaf plant. It hasn't grown a lot, and I've tried doing different conditions. Giving it bright light has not been the best idea because it bleaches so easily, and this is what a bleached El Guapo leaf looks like under a 10-watt Barina bar. It's not even that bright. But under lower conditions, I find that it just doesn't really grow. Like, there's not a lot of growth on it. It's super, super slow. So I'm still trying to figure out what the right kind of condition is for this plant. This one is also growing in no drainage. Before, when it was a really big plant, I think it was also in no drainage to my recollection, although it also could have very well been in a pot with drainage, but I put it into a glass vessel. So it was kind of just like sitting in a pool of water. It's not really coming to me. The memory isn't coming to me. But this is what it looks like now. I would say very different than the other one that I have. The veins are spaced way more apart, and I do find that this one has more of like a spade shape rather than that round like heart shape. So yeah, there's this guy, and then this was also a propagation from the same plant, a lot smaller. Finally came awake, or it finally woke up. It's a tiny little thing. I think I'm gonna, I don't know if I want to sell this. I was thinking of selling it in the next live sale with Lauren, but at the same time I'm like, what if this thing never does anything? Like, maybe I do need a backup, because this is one of those plants where like I do want to try and glow it back up this year. I want to see it kind of looking like it looked like before. Don't know if I'll get there, but this is where we are now. This is the last philodendron out in the living room. I'm gonna take a lunch break after this because I am getting hungry. But this is the philodendron Rio. I got this from my friend Missy. Good work, Sherman, good job. I got this from my friend Missy over in the States. She sent me a cutting when I acted as the delivery man for a plant for Erin. To bring back to Canada, and just as kind of a thank you, she gifted me, I think it was like a single or double node cutting of the Rio. And I've always really liked this plant. At one point, like I said, I had a lot of these trailing guys like in that Brazil family, but it never really stuck. The love for it never really stuck. But there's something about the Rio that just kind of gets me. I don't know exactly what it is. Like, when you look at these leaves, it's not like the most, I don't know, to me it's not like the most incredible thing you've ever seen. Like, it's variegation, yes, but I don't know why I love it so much. I think because it kind of tends sometimes to have these really sort of sharp leaves, and yeah, it's just, I find it to be really fun to grow. And at one point I also almost thought maybe this wasn't for me, but now that it's getting bushier and I've kind of taken the time to chop it and propagate it, repot it, give it more love, it's really starting to like show me who's boss. So I can't wait for this thing to be really nice, big and bushy. There's something about a really bushy and full trailing philodendron that just tickles a spot in my heart that no other plant can tickle. So kind of reliving my dream of having these trailing philodendron. I think once my Micans is looking pretty again, this one's looking pretty again, and maybe my cordatum, variegated cordatum, not cordatum, oxycardium. Did I say cordatum earlier? Yeah, I think once those three are nice and bushy, like, you're definitely gonna be seeing them a lot more. But yeah, this one is growing in no drainage, in pond. How did I miss so many plants when I watered? This is what happens, this is what happens. Leca down at the bottom, like I said, party pond. I will link Ina's pond in the description. It's a little bit more expensive, but small batch, handmade, hand mixed or whatever. So if someone asked me to make them a batch of pond, it's not gonna be cheap, trust me. Not that it matters to you, because you're gonna see me in an instant anyway, but I'm going to take a break. I'm going to eat something. I don't know if I'm gonna stay out here or not because I'm not really sure I have the energy to keep walking back and forth from my plant room to here because the rest of the philodendron I'm showing you are in there. But either way, you will see me in a jiff with maybe a room change. Okay, I am fed. I'm so happy. I'm in a time right now where, I mean, granted I'm still on nausea meds, so I'm just constantly drowsy, but I'm so hungry. I'm just like ravenously eating. Anywho, guys, let's continue on. I still have some daylight out here, so I am still here. But anyway, the next one on the list is my philodendron gigas. Where do I start with this plant? I've had many gigases in the past. As early as I would say 2020 is probably when I got my first gigas. I will say I'm not great at growing this plant. I feel like I struggle a lot with leaves coming out of the caterpillar as shown in Exhibit A. I thought maybe it was a humidity thing, but I have grown all of my gigas in higher humidity. Always grew it in greenhouses, and it does this thing where it just struggles out of the caterpillar. I had that issue with my soderini, notoriously with the soderini. The use of CalMag has helped a lot with that issue when it was younger. I am feeding this one CalMag pretty regularly and still nothing. Lauren, so I got this from Lauren. She wanted to replace the one that had gone missing. She put it all on this setup for me. It's still in the original thing she gave it to me as. And she just grows, I think she has like 3 gigas in the shop now, and they all grow just out in, I mean, ambient conditions. Her warehouse is, I would say, like at a steady, at least 65%, 70%. Obviously in the summer, it's gonna be a lot more humid than that. There are some times in the summer where we walk in there and it's just like, you know, when you get off a plane in Hawaii and you just feel like that moisture. Yeah, there are some times where it's really humid in there, but at times like this in the winter where it's cooler, humidity is down and she has to supplement it using humidifiers, they still grow really well. So I can't blame it on the specimen because I've had so many different kinds. I can't blame it on the lack of humidity because they're in greenhouses and they are being sprayed pretty regularly. Like when I see a new leaf coming, I try and give it a little spray so that there's a bit of, you know, moisture to help it out of there, but still nothing. It's just like, I don't know what it is. And then it ends up breaking. Like the whole petiole just ends up breaking because it's just bent so badly. So I don't know. I don't want to give up on it right away because Lauren gifted this to me and she had faith in me that I could grow it again. But I'm just not good at it. But the reason that I keep trying is because I love the leaves so much. I love these long Eeyore, sad, droopy looking leaves. I love the color of it. It's so unlike a plant like, I would even say the Melanochrysum, where I think the comparison between these two, it's pretty common. But in my observation and experience, like these leaves are much thicker than the Melano, and it has like a totally different like shade of what is like a blackish blue color. To me, I don't look at this and see like a green leaf. Like this looks like a blackish blue. What color is this? Like if you can see it, it has like undertones of this like turquoise blue in different light, and it's just so beautiful. I really love this leaf. I love it when it gets bigger. Lauren's leaves, I think her biggest one is probably like this size. Like they're massive and it keeps that color. And so I'm just like, I want it to work so bad. Yeah, it's a great little plant, but I will say that I have not had the best experience growing it. I still haven't kind of figured out what it wants. I haven't really cracked the code on the gigas just yet, but we're still trying. We're out here trying. We're struggling and trying. I'm not really setting any expectations or goals for this one for this year. I don't want to let myself down in that way. I don't want to disappoint myself, but I think my only, I guess my only goal with this plant is to just try and understand its tendencies more, try to understand what it likes, try to understand how I can get these leaves to kind of come out a little bit easier, so that hopefully I can share that with you guys. And if, of course, if you have any pointers for me in terms of gigas care, I would honestly appreciate it. Next one is my philodendron patriciae. Obviously you can see we've got an emergent leaf here. She's comparable in size to the last one that came out, which was this one. It is gonna be expanding quite a bit. I do find that patties kind of start off a lot smaller and then they have the ability to expand way more than you would expect. So I mean, it's already going past the pot, but I wouldn't doubt if it came all the way like down to here once it was fully expanded. I imported this from Ecuador a couple years ago. Actually, no, Alice imported this from Ecuador a couple years ago, gave me a cutting of it. And so this has grown from just a little teeny tiny prop. And it's taken a long time for me to size it up even to this size, which isn't that big. I'm proud of it, don't get me wrong. I'm not grateful for, I am grateful for the growth that I've seen on it. It's been a long journey, a very slow journey, slow and long journey for sure. But it's been pretty rewarding to see it, especially this year, kind of grow into something that looks like a patriciae, because prior to this year, it was nothing impressive. Honestly, there was a point where I was like, I don't even want this plant anymore. Juvenile patriciae leaves are not very magical or nice to look at, in my opinion. It's a little boring. But once it, once it outgrows that weird phase, which I think I still have a leaf on it where I'm just like, whatever. Once you get into the phase where you start to see the ruching, you start to see the ribs a little bit more, then it gets more exciting. So yeah, we're slowly but surely making our way there. She is on a pole, fully rooted into the pole, living in no drainage, in soil, no reservoir layer down at the bottom. Currently living in an exo that's probably at most 65, maybe not even that, like 60% humidity at most. And that's not even steady because it's not sealed. There's just like a glass over it and there's like big air pockets on the sides. So really it probably only hit 65 as soon as I water all the plants in there and like give all the poles a spray and stuff. But it's probably closer to like 50%, to be honest. I still feel like I'm learning the way of the patriciae, but we're getting somewhere, finally. I've got my philodendron majestic here. I also showed this one in my recent glow up and downs video, but I actually categorize this one as a glow down because I think if you watched any of my favorites videos from 2022 where I featured the majestic, I think you would probably agree that it has glown down quite a bit because it's just a lot smaller than it used to be. Although this leaf right here is looking pretty promising. It's kind of showing more of like that mature form of majestic. And yeah, I just, I've been through, I think, hell and back with this plant, but it continues to be one that I don't really tire of. I definitely have a soft spot for silvery philodendron in my heart for sure, and especially on these really like big leafy pillowy ones. I can't resist them. And as much as I've been loving seeing anthurium, as much as I find them, I guess, less maintenance to grow because they don't need poles and things like that, there's just something that these climbing philodendrons that change form so much as they mature, it just does something for me, and it's so rewarding and just so like, I have another word that I'm trying to think of in terms of like why philodendron growing it does feel so different than anthurium growing. I'm not obviously going to say that anthurium growing is easy, because if you look at my collection, you will know that it has not been easy for me. But there's something about like the work that you have to put in with philodendron to get them into a different form of what it can be, that challenge is just unlike anything else, especially when you are finally like seeing results and you're hitting goals and stuff. It's just magical. It can be really stressful for sure, but I definitely still get that same rush that I used to get when I first started owning imported aroids. I still get that, like when I see a new glorious leaf, like no matter how long I've had my glorious, no matter how long I've had my billies, like every time a new leaf comes out, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I wonder how much bigger it's gonna be. I wonder if it's gonna look different. And so yeah, this is one of those plants where maybe not on a day-to-day I look at it and it's very exciting, but I do kind of look at it with a lot of pride and a lot of joy and happiness. And I do have big goals for this plant, and I don't really think it's gonna let me down. I'm feeling good about it, honestly. I don't know where the optimism is coming from, considering it's been a little bit harder to size up this year. But I think we're gonna get somewhere, and I would love to see some like body size leaves. Like I wanna see leaves as big as my torso, or like as big as my belly. That would be so much fun. Anytime I see a really mature photo of a majestic, I just, so much envy. And I'm like, one day, hopefully we will get there. I'm not a huge varicosum lover myself, but I think that like the hybrid of these two plants was just, it was spot on. It was so good. I feel like it has just enough of that very neon, striking color of the varicosum, just enough, but more so leans on the soderini features, which I love the soderini, obviously, like you would have known. And so to me, this is just one of the best philodendron hybrids out there. Would I recommend it to everyone? No, though I will say it has been so much easier to grow than the varicosum. I can't grow varicosum. That's why I don't have varicosum in my collection. And I would say that it's easier to size up than a soderini. It definitely has that hybrid vigor for sure, but it does take some work. It does take time. I have not been able to size it up successfully without a pole, so keep that in mind. It's a commitment and a lot of effort to try and get it like really, really big in my experience. But yeah, like I said, worth it. Here we have a very sad and thirsty philodendron esmeralda. I must have missed this one as well when watering. I've been like listening to podcasts and watching Netflix while I water in the plant room, and I find that I've just been, with watching Netflix, I'm like so distracted that I like forget where I was watering and I just end up missing things. So I need to remember to only listen to podcasts when I'm watering, because I tend to have a really good focus when I do that. But this is one that I like freaking fell in love with when I first saw it, and I'm having difficulty remembering how I acquired this. My spidey senses are saying it was through Lauren, but I can't remember if I like bought this at a pop-up, or she like gave me a cutting, or I bought one from her shop. I don't remember how this came into my life, but it did, and I have not regretted it since. It's been kind of a harder plant to grow in terms of managing the growth, because even with really, really good light, because it's growing in a greenhouse right now in my plant room, even with good light, this has the tendency to just push out the longest petioles ever. Like, look at how long this guy is, like for what reason? And so again, even when it's not thirsty, it does have a tendency to like droop and fall, which is why I've kind of secured the petioles with string and stuff. Otherwise these leaves would be like down here. So still kind of trying to sort out how to grow it with a nice growth pattern, but I love it enough that I've put up with it. And I really, really love these leaves. Someone had commented on another video saying that like they don't see the appeal in the long strappy-ish looking philodendron. And I mean, I can kind of understand for some of them why there would be no appeal, especially if they all kind of look the same. Like, me having a billy, I don't have the desire to have like a philodendron maximum, whereas before I probably did. Same with like the Scott Morianum. Like I think that you have to collect ones that have enough of a different look that it keeps it exciting. And to me, when I look at this plant, I don't see a Billy. I really don't. I just see a little cutie, and I love on like especially the emergent leaves, this midrib and the very subtle venation. And it gets really, really cool as it matures. Lauren has a really big one at the shop from my friend Jessie. There have been so many times where I've been tempted to ask her if I can take that thing home. But then I think about it and I'm like, where in tarnation would I put it when I can't even manage the size of my own? But yeah, all that aside, this one is another philodendron that is heavy on the EFN. And this is not a plant that I'm really babying like some of my other philodendron where I would take it to the shower all the time and give it baths. It has burned through a lot of these leaves. It might be hard to tell on camera, but when you leave EFN on certain leaves, especially the thinner the leaf for sure, the more noticeable it's gonna be. But yeah, it just kind of leaves these like burn marks through the leaf. Look at this one. Look at how much EFN is on this guy. It's so sticky. So I don't love that part of this plant, but I feel like it's a cool enough plant that I just put up with it. I do think that once it's time to repot this and figure out the new situation for it, I think this might be one of the plants that I keep as like a 1 or 2 leaf plant. I don't necessarily get a lot of joy in seeing it as a big bushy thing like this. I think I'd much rather have less leaves so that I can appreciate each leaf on it rather than trying to keep all the leaves and not really know what I'm looking at, and it's just taking so much space. So that's kind of my mentality in going forward this year with how I'm gonna manage this one. But I do want to hopefully see some size growth. I would love if my leaves could size up to the size of the one at Lauren's shop, because it really is a cool guy. While we're talking about like the strappy philodendron guys, next one is my philodendron. This was originally imported as a Billietier AF, was later, I think, confirmed to now be called the Lita Red, philodendron Lita Red. I fell in love with this plant when I saw it first being offered on an import list. I was like, this is a non-negotiable, I have to have this. And I still actually feel that way. Unfortunately, I just have not had the best experience growing it. Actually, pretty much everyone in my life that I know that owns this plant or owned it really didn't have a lot of luck growing it in terms of sizing up, having nice big leaves form, not rotting, not getting stuck in the cataphyll. Like, I feel like every issue you can have with a philodendron I experienced with this plant. This isn't even my original plant. I imported one myself. That one died. I think I got a cutting from my friend Jing. That one died. And so I now have inherited Alice's plant. I think she was just kind of over it and asked me if I wanted it. And I had actually been kind of sad thinking about not having this plant anymore, because you know, you see old pictures of it and you're like, oh, man, like what could have been. And I feel like these leaves are really, really, really cool. And I'm gonna insert a photo of a more mature one here. And I want to say that I want to set a goal to get some leaves that are a little bit bigger than this, because this is tiny, and honestly this is about the biggest that I've really ever been able to grow new leaves. So I want to say that I want to set a goal for this one, but at the same time, like, not really historically, it's not looking good from my history with this plant. And again, just don't want to disappoint myself. So I'm gonna just try my best to take care of this thing and give it a good life. But so far, we're struggling a little bit. Like, look at this new leaf. It's so tiny. And I find that this plant, it doesn't expand a lot. So like whatever the leaf looks like when it emerges, it doesn't really get any, like, it doesn't get a lot bigger than what it emerged as. So we're still kind of like in baby town, USA. But it was at least worth a feature, and hopefully the next time I do an actual feature on this thing, like, we have some progress, but right now it's not much. And if you want to know the conditions it's living in One of my exos, again, not a completely sealed exo, so probably around 55% humidity, maybe 50, because there's only like 4 plants in there right now. Living in no drainage, in soil, leca down at the bottom. I have tried growing this with drainage holes outside of a greenhouse, in the tent. I kind of feel like I've tried it all, so we're just going back to the basics, sticking it in an exo and kind of seeing what happens. Next guy is my philodendron heterocraspidon, which looks a little crappy right now. This is another one that was imported at the same time as the Patriciae. So both of, actually, I feel like the Patriciae has sized up faster than this one, because I acquired the Patriciae as I think it was a mid-cut, a rooted mid-cut, whereas I had the top cutting of this plant and I gave the bottom to Alice. I've had a better experience growing this plant in terms of like leaves forming correctly and having leaves that were a little bit more mature looking than the Patriciae, but it has been slow. It's a slow grower, it's a slow rooter. This is not a plant that's gonna, like, at least in my care, has not pushed out leaf after leaf after leaf. Like, I've never really struggled to fit this plant in where it needed to go. It really wasn't until this year that I've started to see some actual growth, and this kind of looks similar to what I've seen on an import size as labeled medium or something. Unfortunately, the leaf that came after this one got stuck in the cataphyll. You know, I mean, it was partially my fault because you can see that this leaf is kind of growing this way, and so it's in the corner of my exo, and so I had a glass right here. It was like right up against the glass, and so the new leaf was pushing on the glass and it just like completely snapped the petiole off. So we're starting again. Hopefully the next leaf, the cataphyll is looking pretty good in terms of size. So hopefully we get another leaf soon. But yeah, this one has just been an absolute pleasure to watch mature, to watch grow. I think it's one of like the coolest strappy philodendron out there. Very, very simple, nothing really to it. Doesn't even have like a nice velvet leaf or anything. But she's pretty. Right now it is growing in, I don't know if there's tree fern fiber in here, but it's definitely soil and perlite, no leca reservoir down at the bottom. Living in one of my exos, again, anything is probably less than 60%. But yeah, this is what she looks like now. I always love showing this guy on camera. So this is the philodendron summer glory. It's a hybrid of a Macaulay's finale hybrid crossed with the philodendron gloriosum. Honestly, the Macaulay's finale has never really ever been on my radar. It's never been a plant that I've wanted, but I never thought that hybridizing it with the gloriosum would result in such a cool plant. I grew this one from a little teeny tiny plant. I think the leaf was probably this big when I first acquired it, and it has grown quite a bit since then. I was able to get a larger summer glory when I was visiting the States, and I couldn't resist it. I mean, I love this plant so much where I was like, yeah, let's get another one. But you know, life happens, things were getting larger, and it was just hard for me to manage all of the growing philodendron that I have, that I had. So I sold that one, and as nice as it would have been to keep the larger one, because the leaves were probably like, I'd say the biggest leaf was probably around this, like this big. I don't know, I had more of a sentimental attachment to this one because I had grown it from a tiny little plant. It's not far away now from what it's gonna, or what the other one looked like. I think probably by the spring, I'll probably have leaves where I'm like, okay, where am I gonna put you now? But it's such a cool plant. So in terms of the texture, it feels very much like a Dean McDowell. So just think of a mix of that velvety feeling and sort of that rubbery feeling of like the Postazanum. So you get like that perfect mix, and it has a really nice feel to the touch. The hardened off leaves has almost this like pinkish orangish Venetian color, which is super cool. So it's not like a regular gloriosum where it's like really white. And then the color of the leaves, Typically I would think like, oh, I want a really dark leaf philodendron with like bright veins, but like this one is just so yummy. Like it's not light green, but it has like just such a beautiful shade. And I think the contrast between the leaf color and the venation color is just really nice. And then obviously where the magic is really is the emergent leaves. I enjoy these emergent leaves so much. They are so delicious. They remind me of like, what do they remind me of? Like a sorbet or something, like a sorbet, like a nice sorbet. Like look at that lemonade pink color. And then it has like that Macaulay's finale leaf color when it's emerging. The back is just burgundy, super burgundy. And there's nothing I don't like about this plant. I've said that from the beginning. I think this is one that's gonna be with me probably indefinitely. It's interesting because I've seen really mature plants and they are all self-heading like the Macaulay's finale, but all of the summer glories that I've owned and seen are all crawling. So I don't know what the deal with that is. I really wouldn't mind if it was self-heading. It would probably be a lot easier to manage and easier to grow if it was self-heading, because I don't love the maintenance of crawlers. But whatever she wants to do, she is my master. I will do whatever she needs me to do because I love it that much. So yeah, if you have not already added this to your philodendron wish list and you love the gloriosum, please add this. Please add this plant to your wish list. They're not even expensive anymore. There was a certain point, it's weird because it went from like only collectors had it and you really didn't see it that often to like all of a sudden now it's tissue cultured and it's in every store. So you can get them for cheap now. Don't pay too much for it because they're everywhere, but it is absolutely worth it. And if you can actually grow it from a smaller plant, I would recommend that. But you know, if you want to just go big right away, get one of the ones that are in like those 14-inch pots. They're freaking massive. I'm rolling on a perlite. Oh my God, there's perlite stains. Perlite skid marks everywhere. Oh no. Oh my gosh, I'm getting winded and the next few that I have to take out are the big ones and Vince is not here to help me. Oh gosh. Another one. Stop. Oh my God. These floors are gonna be so messed up. There goes my security deposit. Next one is one that I don't show really ever on this channel. It's kind of flown under the radar ever since it came home. This is my philodendron SP Napo Purple. I acquired this from Lauren. She got an import one day. She saw the strappy leaf. She's like, I feel like you need this. So to be honest, I didn't jump on the idea. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, no matter what, I need that. Because at the time I had my Mexicanum and I do feel like the resemblance between this plant and the Mexicanum is so similar, especially in like its juvenile phase. Like I would easily honestly confuse a juvenile leaf of this with a Mexicanum. But ultimately I decided to sell my Mexicanum and keep this one only because I felt like with my Mexicanum, I hit a point in maturity where I felt like that's what I wanted to achieve. And as soon as I did, I was kind of like, okay, now what? Like, who's next? And it wasn't a plant like some of my other staple philodendron where I felt like it was a plant that I needed to keep long term. I think I realized ultimately that I liked it for the challenge and being able to witness it going from a little juvenile plant to a more mature plant. And in full transparency, I don't really love the look of the Mexicanum in its full mature form. I feel like it kind of loses a lot of its silliness, a lot of the quirks about it that I love so much. And I had a friend who wanted it, and so it just kind of like worked out and I felt like it would be more appreciated at her house. So this has kind of been my Mexicanum kind of replacement, I guess, or it just like kind of scratches that itch of wanting to own a Mexicanum. The leaves kind of remind me more of like a spiritus in the way it looks now. But yeah, I guess we'll just wait and see to, I don't know, see what it kind of matures as. It's not my favorite plant in my collection for sure. It's not one where I see a new leaf and I'm like, oh my gosh, a new leaf is coming. But it's there, and it's been really easy to grow. I do think that this is gonna make a great filler plant if I ever need a plant that can live out in ambient conditions, that wants to just live on a shelf somewhere outside. And you guys know that I love the long boys. And so yeah, this is what it looks like now. It's been sizing up pretty well. It was a little bigger. Oh, I think this is one of the original leaves. So a little bit of a size jump, but not too much. But yeah, quick feature on this guy. And also growing in no drainage, growing in a party pond with leca down at the bottom. And it's in a greenhouse right now because I don't really have anywhere else to put it, but honestly, it's probably gonna come out of there soon. This is one I have not shown on this channel for a long time. So I imported this as the philodendron serpent's chocolate. I don't really know what really the difference is between this chocolate and the non-chocolate because it ended up looking the same as the serpent's anyway. I imported it as a pretty big plant. I was surprised and stunned at how large it was when it came in, considering the price I paid for it. Like, the leaves were mature, they were big, all came off. This is still one of the last remaining import leaves on it. And this is the new guy. Actually, no, this is not an import leaf. I grew this leaf. I think I've grown like 2 leaves, but you know, they've gotten smaller and smaller, and we're getting smaller and smaller. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this plant. If I look at like a healthy plant, I love it. Jing has a serpens. I think it's a serpens, not a squamiqual. Squamiqual. What am I thinking of? Not a squamiqual. What's the other one? Serpens. What's that other fuzzy petiole one? It's a squamiqual, isn't it? Oh. Squamiferum squamiqual serpens. So this, all the information I used to have in my brain, no longer. The squamiferum is the one that looks like a Florida beauty, not Florida beauty. Like, it's like in the Florida family, Florida green, but it has like the fuzzy petioles. Okay, I look at mature leaves, I look at big healthy plants, and I love it. I do think it's such a cool philodendron, and I feel like it's so different than the rest of the guys in my collection, which is why I've kept it around. But this has not been a walk in the park to grow. It really hasn't. I've heard the nightmares about acclimatizing the squamiqual and the serpens, but I've had friends who have no trouble growing it at all. That has just not been my experience. I had the squamiqual at one point, that one completely died. And my import it's not going great, you guys. Like, I think there was a leaf that came before this that just completely rotted in the caterpillar, and I don't know why. I did have this in higher humidity. I had it in my tent for a little bit, but it was just not looking good in there. Like, I almost felt it like it was too hot. Someone recommended to move it to a cooler place, which I did, and just, I don't know. I really don't know. And before you say it's the drainage holes, I did try growing this with drainage, and the roots just like completely rotted off. I don't know, I can't figure it out, but this is what it looks like now. Really not much to look at, but a cool plant nonetheless. Like, if you really take the time to look at the features of this plant, it is cool. Look at that, look at that. That is like the pic. That's the picture you want for Instagram. This little region right here. The fuzziness is insane, literally insane. This one's kind of like dead now. It's not as vibrant and healthy and lush as like the new one. But I did own the squamiferum before, and as soon as I was introduced to the squamiqual and the serpens, I wanted nothing to do with that plant anymore. I'm like, this is where the fuzz is at for sure. I am not setting goals for this plant this year. I guess, okay, fine. My goal is to keep it alive. That's what I want for this plant. I want it to be alive. I don't have high hopes that the leaves are gonna get nice and big and I'm gonna have like a nice big bushy plant. I feel like I still need to figure this guy out, and I'm not even close. The next one is literally chopped up into, ow, the perlite, which I stepped on it, that hurt. The next one is chopped up into bits and pieces. This is what remains of my philodendron Florida Beauty. I did sell quite a few cuttings of this plant, as you would have seen in my last week of plant things. I sold all the bottom cuttings. I am now rerooting the top, and it's going well. I can already see some new roots on it. I can see some growth points sticking out. So we are on track. I'm not really sure which cutting I'm keeping, to be honest. I'm not really attached to any specific one. I have faith that no matter which cutting this comes from, it's going to be variegated. It's just always been such a great plant for me in terms of giving me variegated leaves. I could keep the top, but I honestly don't really mind starting over as a small plant again, only because if we continue the growth and get any larger than like what the leaves are now, again, I don't know where they're gonna go. I really don't. But this is where we are now. Really not much to show. If you wanted to see what it looked like before the chop, you can watch week of. But yeah, she was getting pretty dang big. It was just a little bit too much for me. I could have extended the pole and just kept going, but honestly, it just felt like the right thing at the time to just chop it and give little pieces to other people who have been wanting one. But yeah, this is what she looks like now. I'm not really sure what the plan is, but figure it out when we get there. Dwindling down now, the next few I'm going to show you are all gloriosums. The first one is my philodendron gloriosum zebra. This is what remains of it. I will pop in a photo of what she looked like in 2022. She got really bad spider mites after a California trip. I just could not deal with the yellowing leaves. I couldn't deal with the outbreak. It was spreading to other plants, and it was very hard for me to chop that thing back down to nothing because I had worked so hard to get it to the point that it was at. But ultimately, I think it was the right decision. Props took so long to do anything and wake up, but finally I'm starting to see the zebra back on it. And I do think by this year I'll have like a decent sized plant again. And I'm honestly really excited about it because I just love this form of gloriosum so much. I think it's definitely my favorite form of gloriosum of all of the ones that exist. Just like the most striking white venation. It's got that lemonade pink color when it's first emerging. It keeps some of that lemonade color in the back. And it's just a fun gloriosum. I think I'll always be a gloriosum girl. I'm hoping this one takes off this year because it would be so fun to get some nice big puffy leaves again. So yeah, this is what remains of her. The next form of gloriosum I have is what I call the Angry Alice. She got this from a Canadian shop. I don't know if he's still selling anymore. He was selling them as glorious, but they ended up being gloriosum, and they ended up actually being a very cool form of gloriosum. I don't know where he got it, but I don't see very many of them really being sold. I'll show you a few photos of what the Angry Alice can look like. And wait, did I tell you why I call it the Angry Alice? Well, I call it the Alice because I got it from Alice. She's the one that got it. And then I call it the Angry Alice because some of the leaves, like when they're more mature, they look very sinister and mean, and like it just has like a problem with you. Like it looks scary, but in like the best way possible, of course. So that one was pretty big. Same spiel, got spider mites, just too hard to manage. I got to a point with a lot of my big leafy philodendrons where I was like, I can't keep treating these things like multiple times a week. I can't be dedicating as much time as I have been to treating for spider mites. It kept spreading to other plants and I was just 100% over it. So this is another one I started over with. I would love to see this one size up this year too, but if it stays more compact and small, I also wouldn't mind it either. This is another plant that I repotted the same week that I repotted my El Guapo. This one was a little bit less invasive because I see webbing on it and I know exactly where it came from. It was living next to my Juncus spiralis, my spiral plant, which is one that I knew had spider mites. Mother heifer. Okay, this one's going straight into the bathroom. Anyway, this is one that I repotted at the same time as my El Guapo, but this one was soil to soil, much less invasive. And yeah, this one, oh, so this is the philodendron gloriosum white veins. I think that's what this form is called. I would say this is probably my second favorite form of gloriosum, just because, I mean, look at it. It's like absolutely stunning. And I love how this one definitely tends to have a really, really sort of exaggerated, like round sinus where it like does that. This little, that's my favorite thing about these like lily pad looking gloriosums, is that sinus with the little keyhole vagina in the center. There's just another leaf back here that I'm gonna try and show you. Oh my gosh, my throat's so dry. It's so dry in here. Yeah, I don't know why this leaf doesn't want to join the party, but it was actually sizing up really. I grew this leaf in my care. I acquired this from Alice actually, and it was growing really well while it still had space in the pot to grow, but as soon as it like hit the side of the vessel, it just reverted in size. But that's okay. But yeah, just look at this leaf. There is really nothing like this specific form of gloriosum. It has probably one of the most striking venation of any philodendron out there. Very EFN heavy right now though. But anyway, yeah, this one hopefully can live in this long planter for a long time. I hope it perks back up. I don't think it's thirsty, but probably just going through a little bit of transition shock. I only repotted it a few days ago. So really, if I'm not seeing any like improvement in health, like it doesn't look like it's perked back up after like a month, I usually go back in and try and see what's going on. But like oftentimes you'll see after you repot plants, like they're gonna look a little floopy and droopy like this. And I find that going in too soon is really disrupting to that process. So you kind of just have to go through it. But yeah, look how much smaller this leaf is compared to where we were at before it ran out of space in the vessel. But honestly, if this plant stayed this size, I'd be happy, because I have been a little bit overwhelmed with this plant. I've been chopping it back down to only stay as a 2-leaf plant. I don't know why I haven't chopped this other leaf off. I think because it's so pretty, I'm having a hard time letting go of it. But typically I've been keeping this as a 2-leaf plant just so it's a bit more manageable to keep wherever it's living. But yeah, I'm gonna go put this in the bathroom. I'm gonna treat it with my go-to spray right now, which is the Dr. Woods Peppermint Tea Tree cast-iron soap with 99% alcohol and some water. And I'm definitely feeling more confident now with spider mites, because I feel like this treatment has worked so well for me, where I'm like, oh yeah, you want to come into my house? Well, I've got a treat for you. So anywho, be right back. I'm gonna go throw this in there, and then I'm gonna grab what I think is maybe the last plant. There's actually 2 plants left. You can see a little bit of my glorious here. I'll save that for last. The next one is my philodendron spiritus sancti. I know, I am so good at growing this plant. Don't be jealous, really, don't be jealous. It's fine. Maybe yours can look like this one day too. But in all seriousness, I have been absolute horse crap at growing this plant. Not quite sure what it wants. I have been able to observe the growth of many of them in working at North Shore Tropicals, and I think we can all agree, in terms of everyone at the shop, that not that it's comparable at all, but she imported the Monstera Burley Marx's Flame the same time as the Spiritus. Did you guys just see something jump out of there?
The same time.
Or am I crazy? She imported them at the same time, and like the Burley Marx's Flame imported so much easier, acclimated so much easier, rooted so much easier, and the Spiritus have been kind of a hit or miss. This has not been going well for me at all. I was actually quite surprised at how difficult it's been to grow, to root, to do anything. I've been having yellowing leaves. I don't know if it wants to be moved to a pot with drainage and be flushed all the time. I can see some new roots in here though, so it seems happy. But yeah, I'm struggling a little bit, and she doesn't look like much, but this is one that I am so determined to grow, because nothing, okay fine, I'm not gonna say nothing, but The mature Spiritus Sancti leaves, they do something to me. They really do something to me. And they, yeah, it's just one of those plants where I'm like, at some point, I have to have a mature Spiritus leaf in my house. I just have to. And I really want this to work. I really want this to work, but I think this is just one of those things, like they're growing pains, going through the awkward teenage phase. Maybe it's more difficult as a juvenile plant, and I don't know. But this is what it looks like now. It's not much to look at, but you know. Don't look at the mess in my hallway. We were doing New Year's Eve purging and it was magical. I feel like everything is gonna come spilling out of this pole. Oh my Lord. But this is my philodendron glorious cross of a Milano and a gloriosum, another favorite philodendron hybrid of mine. She has definitely grown this year quite a bit. Hopefully I can just put this down. Yeah, she's definitely grown quite a bit this year. We regressed a little bit, same spiel with the Majestic. Ran out of pole, got spider mite, started getting these weird spots on them, and I basically just had to chop it back and kind of start over. Like when I started over, I think I kept the mid cut, and the new leaf that grew from it was like maybe this big. So it was kind of back where I started in the very beginning, and it took me such a long time to get to this point. But I will say, from a mid cut with leaves already this big and a stem that was thicker, it sized up so much faster than when I originally acquired it. New leaf here looks quite small, but these actually expand quite a bit. I feel like this leaf size was comparable to what this one looks like, and you can see how much bigger it is. I'm still waiting to get some nice, kind of like the gloriosum white veins I showed you. It has like the ability to get those nice big like lobes with like the keyhole sinus. I have been waiting. Since owning this plant, I've not been able to get that. Like I still have sort of like a juvenile looking sinus, and that is my goal. My only goal for this plant is not even to get bigger leaves than this, because like this is good for me. Like we're good. We don't need leaves bigger than this, but I just want that like iconic looking sinus, and I just don't think we're there yet. Like every time I think I have a leaf that's gonna look like that, it's just not quite there. This one kind of looks like it has a little bit more of that roundness, but still not enough for me to be like, oh yeah, we've made it. We've done it. But look at how golden and beautiful that emergent leaf is. I just can't get enough of the glorious. I love it so much. This has been probably the most vigorous philodendron grower in my collection since I've had it. Really didn't size up until I took the time to make sure it was like on a pole, rooted on a pole, give it showers, make sure the pole is nice and hydrated, fertilize the pole. So it's been a lot of work. I'm not gonna say that it was easy to get to this point, not at all. It did require a lot of work, but because I love it so much, it wasn't a big deal for me to put in the effort, I guess. I do think once it outgrows this pole, because we're already double stacked of the largest size there is, I think she's gonna get the chop. And it's cool because I can sell the bottom cuttings, and I know that these cuttings, like the new growth from it, they're going to be much larger than if you bought a juvenile plant. So I'm excited to share this plant eventually, and I'm excited to kind of reclaim some space because I've had to move it to different locations around the house many times just to kind of fit it where it fits. But anywho, that's where we are now. And it's a very EFN heavy plant. That's one drawback to this one. Very vigorous grower. I would say easy to come out of the cataphil, can grow in ambient conditions, but super EFN heavy, and sometimes it's so bad that it will just completely burn through the leaves. And I have one leaf that looks like that right now, but I'm too lazy to lift it back up. But yeah, it's gonna like overtake the whole leaf to the point where you won't even really want to look at that leaf anymore, and you just want to chop it off. So now that I'm thinking about it, there's actually, why do I keep getting glimpses of my hair? I look like George Washington. It's giving George Washington. God, I need to like learn how to style it and put products in it. But anyway, there's actually 2 plants that I haven't shown you in the video because they are either stumps or nothing to look at. So the first one is my hybrid from Amanda, aka Bunny. She crossed her philodendron Scott Morianum with a 69686. I'll show you a picture of what it looks like if I can find one. I don't know if I've ever posted it on my Instagram, but I've definitely posted it in stories before. But yeah, so that plant has grown so much for me since I've had it. I grew it from a little tiny thing like this. It's been very easy, but I will say that spider mites love it, and it is also very EFN heavy in my experience. Yeah, it was getting quite large. Leaves were like all damaged and yellow, so I just chopped it back down. It's just like a stick now, which is why I'm not showing it in this video. And then another one is another plant that I got from Amanda, and that is my variegated billietiae. I did chop that one in half because it really wasn't doing much, like it wasn't growing any new leaves. So I thought, okay, let's chop it and start over. Not start over, but like give it something, like send it into shock and say, wake up, you know, do something. So the bottom cutting did root and it did grow a new leaf, and it's completely green. So I'm gonna just kind of wait and see what that plant is gonna grow out to look like. I don't know if it's gonna have any variegation, but I hope it does. The top cutting has done nothing. I have never had a leaf on the top cut before, but I can see the caterpillar starting to swell now. It's getting a lot bigger. The only thing is there is like no variegation in the stem, and I'm not sure if that one is gonna have variegation either. So yeah, you know, just my luck with variegated plants. And of course, one of the ones that I wanted most, and I was so happy when she cut it for me. But yeah, just not a ton of variegation on the top. I was surprised about the bottom though, because the bottom leaf was basically like a half moon. But I guess, you know, it's dicey either way. But anyway, guys, that is the entirety of my philodendron collection. This video is way longer than I thought it was gonna be. What else? Oh, I'll be filming the Q&A sometime this week. I took questions on Instagram. Yeah, I don't think that one is gonna be like a sit down, repot and chat Q&A like I normally would do my Q&As. I really think that I'm just going to sit down and answer the questions. And so anywho, yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing some of the updates on some of these philodendron. Hopefully on some of them next time that I can do a feature on it, they will be looking a little bit better. Talking to you, Spiritus. Thank you guys for watching another Saturday upload. Part 2 of this is going up next Saturday. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.